Peace be with you on this very beautiful, cool day. What is it, about 50 outside? 41 outside? Oh my goodness, 41. Chipping through the ice on the way to church, almost. Okay. So, it's good to be here. Today is All Saints Sunday. We have added the names of our beloved to the tree of life. And our scripture is from Luke, the Beatitudes. And thank you, Tom, for reading that. Except today I thought we could rewrite the Beatitudes. To be real, it's a tough world out there. Let's reflect how the world really works in the reading of the Beatitudes. We should be realistic. Blessed are the rich and privileged in their many things and in their self-assurance. Blessed are the well-educated, for they will get good jobs. Blessed are those who demand and carry out an eye for an eye justice, for they are taking advantage of the situation. Blessed are the powerful who learn to compromise principles, for they will get ahead. Isn't that the world that we see a lot out there? Doesn't that describe the world, the Beatitudes? The way the world sees the people who are really blessed out there? And yet instead, the words that Tom was reading for us, this is the vision that Jesus is giving us. Blessed are the poor. Woe to the rich. Blessed are the hungry, and woe to those who are full. And blessed are those who are hated for doing God's work. And woe if everyone thinks you're great and speaks really well of you. This is a bit shocking, even today. And I've talked about this passage before. We look at the world, and we know who's clearly blessed. They are highlighted. They are on the shows. The rich, the beautiful, the well-connected, the secure, the privileged classes. And yet, Jesus sees something different. Are we looking at the same world? Jesus sees something different. And why is there such a disconnect? As our nation approaches the elections in less than 48 hours, we've been ongoing, I feel many of us look at the same world and we see different things. Pick almost any topic. A woman's freedom over her own body, immigration, jobs, crime rates, the economy, racism, the border, climate change. Pick almost any topic. And I ask myself, how can someone look at the same world and see something very different? Very different. People are people throughout the ages. However, today our differences are ramped up with our wondrous technology, too. Many articles have pointed out how a simple tool like Google reinforces our bias, keeps us locked in the same silo, and other people are in their silo too. And this simple, wonderful search engine called Google and all the other ones build the silos higher. There have been researchers that said, depending upon our online history, or even a one-word change in how we ask a question, Google will give us an entirely different answer. And Google's always right? That is the truth we go to right now. And how many people really look at the second page of searches on Google? 2 people do. We're all stuck on the first page, like the 5 to 7 first results that come up, where we ask AI to do it for us, and actually AI is all part of that right now anyway. So you can ask Google, how are crime rates going down in the United States? And Google will tell you the incredible drop of crime in the last 30 years. And then you can ask Google again, how are crime rates going up in the United States? And Google will give you studies that contradict what the FBI is reporting and how crime is really, really out of control. It's the same Google. It's the same Google. The same Google. Reinforcing our biases. And in this election cycle, I feel that Google is reinforcing our fears too, reinforcing our fears, making us much more anxious. So we are all looking at the same world, and we're perceiving it very differently, very differently. We're getting dramatically different answers. Our biases confirmed, fears go up. And today on All Saints Sunday, though, I want us to pause. I want us to pause, and I challenge us to look at the world the way the saints do. Instead of being locked into our separate silos, and we think we have all the answers, and Google and other news reports are confirming us in our silos here, I'm asking us to pause and look at the world the way the saints do, the way the saints can look at the world. To adopt their lenses, to adopt their eyes, their prejudice, to adopt their viewpoints. When I lived near Worcester in Massachusetts, I was fortunate enough to be invited to hear Desmond Tutu preach when he visited Worcester. I don't know if you know, he visited Worcester. Why would he visit Worcester? Yeah, ask Google. Google can give you 2 or 3 answers for that. But at the time, and you know Desmond Tutu, winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, Anglican Archbishop of Cape Town, advocate for freedom, fighting against apartheid and economic slavery and the brutality of the police state there. That's the Tutu that I got to hear and meet that day. And it was because his daughter, Info, was working on the staff of All Saints Episcopal Church in downtown Worcester. And I knew some people there. I was connected to different churches. We got to all go down and hear him preach. And so here I'm wondering, what is Tutu going to say to us? This is just when the back of apartheid had been broken, the battle was over, and what is he going to say? What is he going to say to this middle and upper class church in Worcester that nurtures their choir school that goes on with boys and girls choirs around the world, does recordings in cathedrals? What is he going to say to us, to all of us gathered there, who, for the most part, what did we do to help end apartheid? For the most part, churches were pretty silent in the U.S. at that time, looking back. And I know what kind of words of condemnation. What is he going to say? You should have helped us more, blah, blah, blah. So we're there, and he begins his sermon with a prayer, and he smiled, and he just laughed. He's laughed. He says, "I'm so happy to be here, my brothers and sisters," and he thanked us. And he thanked us for having this opportunity to speak to us there in Worcester. And he said, "I want to thank you for your prayers when we were in apartheid, in this horrible slavery. Your prayers made all the difference. Thank you so much." And he kept smiling and told stories and laughing. And you're praying for us and never giving up. We knew we were not alone. Thank you. Thank you. And he's just like thanking us the whole sermon, the whole message. And I was flabbergasted because he could have pointed out so many ways we had fallen so short of helping our sisters and brothers in need there. And he thanked us, expressed gratitude and joy and laughter and laughter. Now, he was looking at the same world that we were looking at in Worcester, the same world. And yet, what a difference. What a difference. a few years before, when they were still locked in the struggle for freedom, he was helping to lead protests against apartheid, against those who were, basically enslaved in South Africa. And the police were really cracking down. Most of the leaders, Mandela and others, have been thrown into jail. Tutu was in and out of jail himself. He was one of the few voices free at this time. And now the police were cracking down on him again, too. And on one occasion, the government had canceled this huge political rally. And so Tutu took them all into the cathedral and said, we're going to have a worship service. You can't stop a worship service. And so all the troops that were massed outside came into the church. And there they are with guns and machine guns, and they're all lined up against the wall, and they're taking down everything he says against the state, and they're trying to intimidate him and shut him down. And they're in the armor and the riot gear ringing the whole worship place. And so Tutu looked out from the pulpit, and all the people in the middle, and ringed by massive show of force on the outside. And he addressed all the troops there. He said, you are powerful. You are so powerful. But you are not gods. And I serve a God who cannot be mocked. And then he flashed, they said, that wonderful Desmond Tutu smile, and he laughed. And he said, so, since you've already lost, I invite you to come and join us. Get on our side. You've already lost. Come on in. And the congregation erupted. And they all rose up, and they shouted, and they sang, and they started dancing. They just started dancing with joy in the cathedral, because they knew that the powers of lockdown had lost. They had lost the battle. And they started dancing, and they poured out into the streets, and the dancing and the singing went on. And the government troops just melted away. They didn't know what to do with people filled with joy, people who knew they had won. When they had all the guns, people who knew they had won, when they had the power, they had the wealth, they controlled all the apparatuses of state, and yet they had lost. The bias, the favoritism, the prejudice of a saint made all the difference. The way the saint could see that same world, he saw the same world. Imagine if you were in the congregation and people came and ringed us around here, locked in with armor and machine guns, and didn't want you to do something. How would you feel? And yet they had lost. They had lost. So just imagine what that power was, what that was. And today, and that was basically Tutu, who I want to call a saint, saw the world through the lens of the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor. You are going to be celebrated. Blessed are you who are hungry. You're going to be filled with good things. This is fantastic. And blessed are you who are so powerless, you're downtrodden, because you have already won. The battle is over. You've already won. Just because he's so biased. Tutu is so biased with the love of the Beatitudes, with the love of God. And so today, All Saints Sunday, this is your challenge. I want us to look at the world the way the saints do. And instead of being locked into our separate silos, especially now we're so anxious, locked in ourselves, to see the world the way a saint sees the world. To look with their lenses, with their prejudice, with their bias, and rejoice in the fact that they are prejudiced towards compassion and justice and love. Let's rejoice in that prejudice. Let's join together with that prejudice. And we mourn the loss of our loved ones here, the souls and saints of the past, and especially today we lift up the beloved who have died here in our congregation of Payson Park Congregational Church. In this past year, Winnie Snow and Bill Hudgens and John Lasker. And we know that instead of looking at the world with fear, Winnie just delighted in the world. She delighted in her family. She delighted in being at as many coffee socials as she could be at. And she just loved that. At Bible study, correcting me, she just loved that. So that was Winnie, just delighted. No fear, dancing with joy. And instead of looking at the world the way the world looks at punishment, I love the way that Bill devoted his way to working with those unfortunate, caught up in the gears of justice, even with restorative justice, almost an echo of the Truth and Reconciliation Committees from South Africa that Tutu started to help people avoid this bloody civil war and go to a place where you can have honest sharing of what happened and forgiveness and healing instead of crushing people with punishment. Instead of fear, Bill looked at the world with eyes of transformation and love. And instead of looking at the world and saying, I'm on top and you're not, I look at the example of John, who devoted himself in many ways to helping those who are disadvantaged, helping out people at church, even at the end of his career saying, well, I'm going to join this mobile dentistry group and go out and mobile dentistry to the underserved in rural areas and urban areas, and continuing that legacy of giving and giving. And instead of fear, John sharing what he had and doing what he could. So many, John, Bill, Winnie, and so many others were given to us by God for a time. And they, at their best moments, they were all very biased and prejudiced people. Biased and prejudiced with the lenses of the Beatitudes, with the lenses of God's love. So I say thanks be to God for their favoritism, that they were not neutral, they were not middle road. And thanks be to God that God is so biased. God is not neutral. God is not neutral at all. God is biased in our favor, never giving up, never surrendering, always biased. The forces of greed, they've already lost. They've already lost. The forces of fear, they've already lost. Thanks be to God.